This is one of those rare cars that I can't really make my mind up on. Hi guys, Eric here and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be having a look at this 2019 Nissan Qashqai 1.5dCi Tekna. It looks astonishing and its interior is very well made, but it fails on some other aspects, and I'm going to take this time to explain to you what those issues are. A really big thank you to the accommodating, thoughtful and helpful staff here at ASJ Motors. They have a huge selection of quality used cars located in two locations in the Overberg region. One is in the industrial area of Hermanus, the other is located on the main road of Verliersdorp. They are open for business, so be sure to check out their catalogue, link in the description box below. If you live in the Western Cape and you have an original car in good condition you would like me to review, please get in touch. There's an email address in the description box below. The Qashqai is a small crossover manufactured by Japanese company Nissan. It sits between the small Duke and bigger X-Trail, the latter of which shares its chassis. The first generation Qashqai was unveiled globally in 2006, with sales starting in 2007. You had a choice of 4-cylinder petrol and diesel engines, along with either a 5 or 6-speed manual, a 6-speed auto, or Nissan's continuous variable transmission or CVT. It was a runaway success, with 200,000 units sold a year in Europe alone. It was safe too, with a 5-star rating from Euro NCAP. In 2010, it received quite an extensive facelift, including new light clusters, new instrument panel, and electronic stability control on all models. It received a new engine in 2011 too, a 1.6 turbo diesel unit to replace the 2-litre engine. The second generation Qashqai was released internationally in 2014. This model received a much more modern and dynamic shape than its egg-shaped forebear. It was also quite a bit bigger. The interior received a massive bump in quality too. There was a range of petrol and diesel engines available, including a 1.2-litre turbo unit that produced a decent 85 kilowatt and 190 newton meters of torque. It even received a full 5 stars from Euro NCAP. Sadly, like VW, there was an emission scandal regarding the diesel-powered Qashqais, and Nissan was fined for the infraction. However, this is the facelifted model. It was released in 2017 and includes some niceties like a new steering wheel, new infotainment system, new wheel designs and tweaked suspension, to name a few. Our test unit is fitted with a 1.5-litre turbo diesel engine that produces 81 kilowatt and 260 newton meters of torque. It doesn't really sound like much, but as you will see later in the test drive, it is adequate. I think that even by today's standards, it is a very attractive car. The front end looks dynamic and aggressive, while the rear looks reserved but attractive. In profile, it might look a tad derivative, but it is well proportioned, much better than the bigger X-Trail. These massive wheels look fantastic too, but they do come with a caveat. We will get back to that though. For now, let's have a look at the interior. First impressions are good. Nissan isn't exactly known to be a premium manufacturer, but from where I'm sitting at least, it kind of feels like it. Especially if you take into account the fit and finish. All the panels fit together beautifully, and the swoops and gentle curves emit a very calm demeanor. Use of materials is good too, if you ignore the lower part of the cabin, which kind of feels scratchy, hollow and cheap. The remaining plastics, trim pieces and leather are of a very high quality. I like the general design too. Almost all Nissans of this vintage is known to have very voluptuous and curvaceous curves, and the Qashqai is no different. What I like is how the cabin feels cozy without feeling cramped. You feel hugged and cosseted. One criticism I do have though has to do with the color scheme. It really feels a bit dark and depressing in here, even with the splashes of chrome accents dotted about the cabin. Let's take a closer look though, starting with the door panel. Well, personally, I kind of like the design. It's very rounded and soft, with very few hard edges on here at all. Use of materials on here is excellent too, with the soft touch plastics occupying the top half of the cabin. You also get a metal door handle, leather wrapped armrest, and even a leather wrapped door grab handle with a beautiful brushed aluminium accent. It isn't perfect, of course. The switchgear feels a little bit too cheap, and the door pockets are on the small side. The doors feel just about heavy enough and close with a nice thud, but it doesn't feel quite as satisfying as some other manufacturers. The steering wheel, on the other hand, must be one of the highlights for me. It is modern and sporty and very well made. I love the silver accent. It makes it look very upmarket, and this car even has a flat-bottomed rim. The steering column has loads of adjustment to boot, which is essential for finding a comfortable driving position. There are two problems though. The premium feeling buttons are ergonomically not that well thought out and take some getting used to. And while the rim does look sporty and beautiful, it does clash a bit with the gentle and sweeping curves emitted by the rest of the cabin. Now for the dials. Design-wise, they are hyper simplistic and extremely easy to read. Big white digits on a black background with white needles make for very clear communication. An analog fuel gauge and water temperature gauge sweetens the pot. In between the two analog dials, you will find a pixelated but big full color drives information display. It might look a little bit dated by today's standards, but it comes very well equipped. A full trip computer, driving aids, vehicle settings, and outside temperature are all at your fingertips. Turning to the infotainment system, it's alright. Ergonomically speaking, it does take some getting used to because while it is a touchscreen, you navigate the menus using these very small physical shortcut buttons. This is an issue because you have to take your eyes off the road to make sure you press the right small button. It comes very well equipped though. CD player, navigation unit, USB input, auxiliary port and Bluetooth audio all come as standard. And this Tekna model gets a Bose sound system that packs quite a big punch. The climate controls are very well figured out as well. The dials control the temperature and the fan speed is controlled using a semi-unique button. Now this is important because you can feel your way through the system without having to look at it for long periods of time. Now, the seats might look a little bit monocolour, but design-wise they look really supportive and even sporty. They are cladded in a mixture of leather and soft cloth and they are extremely comfortable. You get manually adjustable lumbar support and the driver's seat is electrically adjustable even for height, so finding a comfortable driving position will not be a problem. With the design dealt with, let's have a look at this little Qashqai's practicality. Its storage solutions are alright. The well-dampened glove box is of a very decent size. You get a small tray in front of the gear lever, another small compartment in front of the armrest, two wide and very deep front cup holders, a very deep space underneath the armrest, and two rather small door pockets. Not that bad, but not class-leading either. Get in the back and things are a bit different. Knee room is very good, as is fit room, but taller people will struggle for headroom, especially with this panoramic sunroof fitted. It is also quite dark back here because of the tinted windows, and the rear bench is a bit firm. Storage is alright. You do get front seat pockets, but the door pockets are quite small and this little tray area is quite useless because everything will just immediately slide out as soon as you pull away. The same thing can be said for these two integrated cup holders because they're a bit too shallow. You don't get any climate vents either, which is sad because you get them on much cheaper cars lately. It is worth noting too that there is a slight dip in quality on the rear doors and they don't feel quite as heavy as those in the front. This is true for some of its rivals though. Now for the boot. I think it is a bit weird. Sure, you do get a decent size, 430 litres, and you get a nice big square opening along with two grocery hooks and a small elastic to help keep things in place. But you don't get any tethering hooks, no spare wheel and no 12-volt socket. The rear seats do fold flat in a 60-40 split and there's no ridge created, but because this Qashqai isn't fitted with a false floor, there is a ridge in the boot whether you have the seats up or not. There is also quite a boot lip. This really hampers practicality a bit, and I'm quite surprised that this top-of-the-range Tekna model doesn't come with a false floor as standard. Okay, let's get the negatives out of the way first. The ride is quite jittery, thanks in no small part to these massive rims. The clutch is quite grabby and takes some getting used to, and there is quite a bit of turbo lag, so if you're not in the right gear, you won't find yourself going anywhere in a hurry. The controls are nice and light though, and the engine feels strong, so lane weaving during rush hour traffic won't be too much of a problem. Just make sure you are in the right gear. As standard on this Tekna model, you might not get front and rear park distance control, but you do get a 360-degree camera setup, so parking, it ought to not be a problem. Out on the twisties, and things aren't actually that bad. Body roll is very well kept in check, and there's quite a bit of grip on offer as well. But the steering is far too light and uncommunicative, so I wouldn't exactly call it fun. This is a small SUV though, so I can definitely forgive it for that. Out on the open road though, and I am a little bit disappointed. Road noise and tyre roar is rather present. Noise insulation could be better, and a softer ride would have been greatly appreciated. Especially considering family vehicles like these tend to go on longer journeys more frequently. Qashqais on smaller rims though do fare slightly better. It is a pity though, because the rest of the experience is very positive. These seats are supremely comfortable and the engine is refined, while at the same time is more than strong enough to keep up with traffic and even overtake when the opportunity arises. Another thing that is quite distracting is the reflection of the dashboard in the windshield. This happens on some cars, and in the Qashqai it is quite apparent. When it comes to the Qashqai's rivals, you have quite a good selection. There is the Kia Sportage, which has a great looking cabin, good dealer network and generous specification, but divisive looks. Then there is the Renault Kadjar, which looks good, but Renault parts tend to be on the expensive side. The Hyundai Tucson is another worthy rival, but it is a bit more expensive than the Qashqai and it looks quite derivative. The Ford Kuga is in the mix too. I haven't reviewed one yet, but if it's anything like other Fords, it is sure to be well built and thought out. Should I mention the elephant in the room though? Thankfully, those infamous engine fires only happened on the previous model and only with a specific engine, the 1.6-litre EcoBoost. Speaking of reliability, the Qashqai sadly loses some points, with exhaust oxygen sensor failure, excessive oil consumption on the 1.2-litre turbo engine, parking sensor failure due to water ingress, and aircon compressor issues, and this is to name but a few. It didn't score well on the What Car Reliability Survey either, placing 21st out of 28 rivals. That's not really good. The Qashqai, in this trim at least, doesn't leave me extremely impressed. Not because it is a bad car, not at all, but because this segment is highly competitive and, in Tekna spec at least, its ride is a bit too harsh, road noise is very intrusive, and rear seat amenities are lacking, especially considering its price. Reliability is a bit of a concern as well, so I will recommend you shop around a bit. There are so many cars in the market, you are bound to find one that is perfect for you. And it is worth noting that a brand new Qashqai is around the corner, so be sure to check that one out. I know I will. Thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. If you enjoyed it, please remember to give it a thumbs up, as it makes a world of difference to my channel. If you haven't already, remember to subscribe and get notified of upcoming reviews. I have loads more coming up for you guys, so stay tuned. Until then, I hope you guys have an amazing day. Until next time, bye.